Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Latino Voices for Boardroom Equity webinar in partnership with the Latino Corporate Directors Association. Before we begin, here are some housekeeping items. Please utilize the Q&A function on the bottom of your screen to submit questions to speakers and panelists if time permits. For individuals who are tuning in from a mobile device, please email your questions to info@cahcc.com. If you have any technical questions, please dial 916-444-2221 or email info@cahcc.com. Please welcome to the webinar stage the California Hispanic Chambers of Commerce President and CEO, Julian Cañete.
Well, welcome and good morning to everybody, and thank you for joining the California Hispanic Chambers of Commerce and the Latino Corporate Directors Association to learn more about the findings on diversity and inclusion and how Latino leaders can drive change through leadership and equity. It is critical for corporate boardrooms to reflect their customer base. Latino consumers today contribute $2.6 trillion or 25% of US GDP. Latino GDP and consumer consumption have increased over the last decade, driven by higher educational attainment rates and growth in wage and income. US Latinos number over 61 million, a total of 18% of the US population, and are growing by 1 million year after year. And still, here in California, 22.8% of public companies still do not have no ethnic or racial diverse directors on their boards. In California, Latinos represent nearly 40% of the population, but only 2.5% of Latinos and 1.1% of Latinas serve as directors on California public company boards. Last year, the CHEC, along with many other companies, were pleased when on the passage of Assembly Bill 979, and the governor signed it into law, requiring boards of California public corporations to include directors from underrepresented communities by December 2021. Latino Voices for Boardroom Equity Initiative will serve as a resource for these California companies with the goal of connecting them to Latino board talent. The CHEC has been collaborating with Latino corporate directors since 2019. Much of that on advocating for AB 979, as well as working to prepare our community business leaders and community leaders to serve and prepare them to serve on corporate board of directors. I am pleased now to introduce Kathy Munoz, Vice President of Advocacy and Demand for the Latino Corporate Directors Association. Kathy.
Julian, thank you very much for inviting us to present to you today. And we are very happy to be joined by one of our Latino Voices partners. Latino Voices for Boardroom Equity is a coalition of national Latino organizations that includes USHCC, Unidos US, LULAC, Alpha, ACE, National Hispanic Media Coalition, LDC, Latino Donor Collaborative, and MALDEF. And joining us today is Leroy Cavazos from USHCC, the VP for Government Affairs, telling us why this effort is so important.
Kathy, thank you so much for that warm introduction. It is an honor and a privilege to stand in solidarity with the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Latino Association of Corporate Directors, and of course, our committee, Latino Voices for Boardroom Equity. Now more than ever, we stand at a critical precipice in corporate America to create systemic paradigm shifts that allow us, like Latinos, to sit at the corporate decision-making tables of America. This is no longer us asking for a supplier diversity handout. This is no longer us asking for fair representation at company boards that depend on Latino and Latina consumer power. This is about the economic vitality and vibrancy of America. And I applaud the efforts and the leadership of Julian Cañete at the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, their state's leadership in passing necessary legislation that would enact and create those systemic paradigm shifts within their corporate constructs in California. The work of LCDA that Esther Aguilera, yourself, Kathy, and Ozzy lead, and the research behind it only proves that the representation of Latinos and Latinas is no longer merited, but required in order so that we can ensure the prosperity, the revitalization, and the buying power that Latinos represent in this country. That is why today's presentation is so critical and so important. And the state of California is doing this the right way. You all are the models for what the rest of America needs to look like when it comes to enacting legislation to change the makeup of corporate boards across this country. And it is because of that the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, our over 5 million Hispanic-owned businesses, board of directors, and more than 260 chambers across this country think that this work is critically important, stand in solidarity with our partners to advance this advocacy, and applaud the research efforts that have gone behind to get us to where we're at today in this report presentation. So without further ado, I leave you in the best of hands with Kathy and Ozzy at LCDA to present the numbers, the proof in the pudding on why Latinos matter on corporate boards in America.
Thank you so much, Leroy. A brief history on Latino Corporate Directors Association. The Latino Corporate Directors Association is a membership organization formed about 5 years ago by a group of Latino public and private company board directors who wanted to pay it forward and prepare aspiring Latino directors for board service. LCDA's mission is to increase Latino representation on corporate boards, a necessary goal because Latinos are the least represented ethnic or racial group in public company boardrooms by any measure. Our membership has quadrupled in the last few years and continues to grow as we add sitting board directors and C-suite executives to our organization. We work with public and private companies, search firms, private equity firms, and source Latino board talent from all industry sectors with diverse business backgrounds, skills, and talents corporate boards are seeking. Along with my colleague, Ozzy Gromada Mesa, LCDA's Vice President for Research and Member and Talent Services, we are here to brief you on the California Boardroom Equity Scorecard, which tracks diversity in California public boardrooms. You may ask why LCDA, a membership organization, is conducting research. Following passage of SB 826, the California law to add women to boards, LCDA reviewed the number of Latinas appointed to California boards in the first 15 months after enactment. We found that only 3.3% of women appointed to boards were Latinas, and shared that information along with data on all women of color in a report released in March 2020. These statistics concerned us. So we did a review of all California public companies and found that over 1/3 of California boardrooms had no ethnic or racially diverse board members. We published the data in July 2020, the same week AB 979 was introduced, a bill requiring California public companies to include directors from underrepresented communities on their boards, and our research was later included in the bill. In September 2020, AB 979 was signed into law, and we formed Latino Voices for Boardroom Equity with the 8 national organizations I just listed. And we began writing to every California public company that lacked a Latino on their board. We have worked with over 50 California companies, providing each with curated lists of Latino candidates for their boards. We also committed to produce a quarterly California Boardroom Equity Scorecard and board tracker to monitor the progress of SB 826 and AB 979. I will now turn this presentation over to Ozzy, the brains behind LCDA's research, who will walk you through the 2021 Q2 scorecard. Ozzy, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Kathy, and everyone that has joined us today for this discussion that shares and discloses how LCDA is advancing the mission, as well as how Latinos are represented on some of the largest companies in California. I'm going to share a presentation with everyone that reviews the scorecard in further detail. The scorecard is available on our website for you to be able to share with your colleagues. And I'm going to share my screen really quick. There we go. As Kathy mentioned, we are a community of US Latinos at the highest level of corporate leadership committed to paying it forward. And we do this in 3 ways. One is by growing supply, growing demand, and raising awareness. And this California scorecard is part of raising awareness. The ultimate goal is to develop, support, and increase the number of US Latinos on corporate boards, something that needs a village to make happen. Every quarter, we produce the California Boardroom Equity Scorecard, which is a quarterly review tracking board appointments by gender, race, and ethnicity of California public companies. The results I'll share with you today is our latest of Q2 2021. We've been doing this project for a year, tracking since the bill was introduced in mid-year last year. Of our latest findings, we reviewed 709 public companies headquartered in California. Since we've started, that number has ranged from 650 to the highest of 709. In our latest review, we identified 5,831 directorships, which was split between 72% male and 28% female. In the findings, we were alerted to 22.8% that lack any ethnic and racial diversity, a decrease from our previous quarter of 2.9%. This number has been trending downwards. The number that is quite alarming to us is the number of companies that lack a Latino director on their board. This number does decrease quarter by quarter, but it's very dismal, the decreases that it's occurring. Currently, there are 82.7% of companies in California that lack a Latino on their board. We went further and dissected every single public company board by race, gender, and ethnicity. We did this to ensure that we had a great understanding of what really was a current board composition. What does it look like currently at a specific time? And from this, we learned that 39.4% of the California population is Latino, but only 2.5% of board seats are held by a Latino or Latina. Furthermore, only 1.1% of total board seats are held by a Latina. As you can see comparison between white, Asian, and Black, we are the least represented by any measure if you compare us to the California population, with whites composing 81.2% of the board seats, Asian 12%, and Black 4.3%. Since we started doing this report a year ago, Latino representation was approximately 1.9%. So in a matter of a year, we've only increased 0.6% compared to other race and ethnicities that had significant gains of board composition throughout the last year. Furthermore, we wanted to get a little bit a better understanding of what happens once a bill is introduced or an event impacts recruiting for boards. So in addition to having an understanding of the board composition, we also have been analyzing new California board appointments from July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021. On the pie graph above, we have found that Latinos continue to trail behind with 49 appointments compared to 999 or 69% for white, 255 or 18% for Asian, and 140 or 10% for Black. This is a total of 1,443 new appointments that we have identified since July 1st, 2020. We then further broke down the board appointments by gender and as well by female. So the breakdown of that 1,443 appointments that we've identified, approximately 59.9% have gone to male and 40.1% have gone to female. As I mentioned, we have been tracking this for the last year with quarterly reports. So you'll be able to go on our website and review every single one of those reports to see the trends from the beginning of reporting to current day. What further is alarming is the Latina representation and as well the number of appointments that are being allotted to that demographic. We have found that of the 1,443, 363 went to white women, 110 Asian female, 77 Black female, and only 28 to Latinas, with a population of approximately 20% of the California population and the largest in terms of female composition. It is pretty dismal to see these numbers that have been trending very, very slowly on a quarterly basis. In addition to our engagement in California, as Kathy mentioned, Latino Voices for Boardroom Equity is an initiative to mobilize our civil organizations and Latino Corporate Directors Association to create change and to bring awareness to the lack of Latino representation on corporate boards. In addition to us engaging California public companies, the next iteration of our engagement will be for Fortune 1000 companies because of the lack of representation in this specific size organization. As you can see from this graph, we've been tracking Fortune 1000 Latino representation since 2011. From 2011 to 2010, there was only a 10% decrease of companies without Latinos. As you can see from 2019 to 2021, there has been the most significant change in a matter of 2 years based on everything that happened in 2020 and the pressure from institutional investors and LCDA to diversify the board. At current day, there's 69% of Fortune 1000 companies without a Latino on their board. Regarding Latino Voices for Boardroom Equity, we are currently in our second engagement. Our first engagement, as I mentioned, was California public companies with no Latinos on the board. We sent out approximately 500 letters to companies in California that lack Latino representation. Our engagement has been very fruitful. We've had conversations with some leading organizations, including PayPal, Exonix, Chipotle, Del Taco, Archer, Boot Barn, American Vanguard, Luther Burbank. And these conversations had led to a Latino being placed on the board. Our second engagement, or second phase of this engagement, is Fortune 1000 companies with no Latinos on the board. We are in the process of sending 600 plus communications to Fortune 100, Fortune 250, Fortune 500, and ultimately all of the Fortune 1000 of those who lack a Latino on the board. We know that this engagement will be fruitful, the conversations will be meaningful, and we hope to ensure that they know that LCDA is a resource to them for vetted Latino talent. And regarding our Latino talent, LCDA is a membership-based organization that is committed to paying it forward. 60% of our members are experienced corporate directors, 40% are board aspiring. They're in the C-suite, P&L leaders, 1 to 2 levels under the CEO. Individuals we believe should be on a board as of today. They've just been bypassed for many years. Our membership is trending over 400. We've doubled in the last 2 years. And we have very deep governance reach with 56% of our director members or experienced corporate directors currently sitting on a public board. This is the information that we share with these organizations that we engage day in and day out to ensure that we're not only informing them that we are watching their moves regarding Latino board appointments or the lack of, but as well that there is a solution, that we are here to give them access to a source of vetted Latino talent. One thing to keep in mind is we do know that 400 members isn't the full pool of Latino available talent. As an organization and part of our raising awareness, we are committed to tracking all Latino board appointments on any public company and ensuring that all of our search firm partners, board influencers know that there's ample talent available. I encourage everyone to stay connected with us. We have more information on our website at latinocorporatedirectors.org, as well as I encourage everyone to follow us on LinkedIn. We share a lot of our research in that platform, as well as any announcements that we've heard of, that we've been tracking of Latino appointments. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And if there's any questions that we can answer, we'll be happy to answer them now.
Yes, there are a few questions here. The first one from Patrick Salazar asks, is nonprofit board service an effective means to advance your private sector network and governance experience?
Patrick, go ahead.
So absolutely. 2/3 of board searches are still done by who you know. The more people that know about you and your ability to govern at the highest levels of leadership and governance is a win-win. There are many leaders within our organization that started off their career in non-for-profit boards to understand governance protocols and as well to build their connections and networks. One of our founding members, Ana Dutra, actually started her governance career as on the PTA of her child's school. And that's kind of how she was able to have an understanding of what governance is. So non-for-profit experience is crucial to having a base of what to expect when you start investigating private boards and or public boards. There are a lot of organizations that help you better understand what it means to not be a non-for-profit board member. And it's something that many of our directors look at when they assess individuals' profiles. Have they had any governance experience? Once again, that can come from non-for-profit, that can come working directly with your board at your company. So that is something that directors do view as a win-win and a way to kind of have a leg up over someone else that may not have that governance experience.
And we've heard from many of our members that their service on private boards often led to an appointment on a public board because of the relationships that they made on that private board. As you look around the room in your private board, you'll see individuals who are serving on public boards, and perhaps they will look to you as a fit, a person that they know, a person that they respect, a person that that they have worked with successfully.
Okay, next question from Ken Macias. What percentage of healthcare companies do not have any Latino board members?
So our report has shown that 82.7% of California public companies do not have Latinos on their board. That is a number that has been trending down, but only at 0.2 or 0.5% quarter by quarter. We are hopeful that this number will continue to decrease as we continue to monitor the activity in California on a quarterly basis, and as well as LCDA continues to build their brand and inform others of what services we have to offer. We are getting more engagement from California public companies and others to say, we want to tap to your membership and to your community. So we're hopeful that number will continue to decrease. We will be releasing an end of year report by January of 2022, which will recap what we saw over the last couple of years, or last year.
Thank you. Next question from John Torres, more of a technical question. If there's a way for us to get those percentages earlier shared by the first presenter, Kathy, I believe we can probably work something out for them.
Right. And we will absolutely send those over.
Thank you. Thank you. Next question from Anonymous. Very interested to learn how the curated list of potential board candidates is compiled. What are the criteria? Are nominations accepted?
Great question. So when we have a member join LCDA, we do a comprehensive review of their background. We have an internal system that helps us analyze their industry expertise, sector, and as well functional expertise. Whenever we engage with a company, either via search firm or directly with the CEO or chairman, we leverage that database to curate a list, and we tend to keep a wide net to ensure that they have ample talent to review. So we leverage that database. We also leverage anything that we find on LinkedIn and some other governance platforms to ensure that we have a comprehensive list for those individuals to review. Once again, we are not a recruiting firm. We're here to reduce the network gap. So we want to ensure that our search firm partners and these organizations know that one, that these individuals identify as U.S. Latino, And two, they're ready and primed for the board. And three, their resume speaks for themselves. So that's how we kind of organize and curate these sourcing lists to ensure that they are aware about the ample talent. We're pretty methodical in our approach. We have ensured that we have elevated the use of research tools and governance tools to ensure that we have a great grasp of who our members are and what skill sets they have to offer.
If I could add to that, I think it's important for the group to know that Ozzy has developed a resource to all search firms and any public companies that want to use the information. He is tracking Latinos on boards across the country, and we are a membership organization, but we don't just advance our members. If we know of a Latino with a skill set that is being requested by a company that we're working with, we put them on the list. We don't hold back. We are interested in furthering Latino board seats in corporate America. And while we think our membership is valuable to our members for a lot of different reasons, continuing education, mentorship from current board members to future board members, we are tracking Latinos across the country that are in boards, and that is very helpful and frankly the only resource for Latinos for search firms across the country.
That's exactly right, Kathy. We become the research arm for a lot of leading search firms. I come from executive search and understand the process, so we've been able to mimic processes that are beneficial to them. For years, Latinos have been excluded from boards, but now they're being bypassed. They're being bypassed because we're a very difficult community to source. We don't look all the same. We don't have, all traditional Hispanic last names. And that is leading to us being bypassed for some of these amazing opportunities that are really going to influence and change the demographic in the C-suite and board. So that's what our commitment is, to ensure that there is no excuse that Latinos are difficult to find.
Thank you, Ozzy. Next question from Jean. Does your sourcing include candidates for large nonprofit organizations?
Our organization is specifically focused on advancing Latino representation on public and private boards. At this point, we haven't dived into the not-for-profit sector. As you know, there's a lot of work to do in this piece of the pie. So we're really focusing on ensuring that we're advancing Latino representation at the highest levels of influence and in the largest companies, as we know that will trickle down to other organizations, microcap, non-for-profit. But as an organization, we only focus on advancing in private and public company boards.
Perfect. And leads into our next question from Dr. Veronica Obregon. Does public board also include large universities, USC, UCLA, et cetera?
Public board to us is anything currently traded on the NASDAQ, New York Stock Exchange, or a large international trading platform. That's what public stands for us, as well as pension systems and mutual funds. That will fall into, pension systems are not public, but that would follow into our experienced corporate director. But in terms of tracking, public is anything on NASDAQ, New York Stock Exchange. That's where our tracking happens. But in terms of qualifications to join LCDA, it's once again NASDAQ, New York Stock Exchange, a large international exchange, as well as if you are on a pension system board, mutual fund, or a large private board of $250 million. So I'm kind of answering two questions there, hopefully.
Thank you. And apologies if you do answer a few that we've already been answered. Plenty still coming in. From Suzanne, has annual dues associated with sitting on a board prevented Latinos from committing or maintaining a seat? Are resources available to aspiring board candidates?
Well, it depends on what we're referencing. So I know in the non-for-profit sector, there is, money that board or trustees need to fundraise or bring into the organization. That isn't something that is considered or a factor in public board or most private board associations. So there is no deterrence in that level. There is potential deterrence when it comes to private equity or venture cap or high growth organizations. Sometimes they ask those who are invited to join as a board member to invest in the organization. So that could be $10,000, $50,000 to $1 million of investment into the organization. We have heard that being a deterrence of those seeking a board seat in that specific sector. When it comes to public board opportunities, there is no financial investment. You get paid for that time that you're on the board, and as well in either restricted stock or on an annual stipend. So that doesn't actually have any deterrence in anyone trying to gain or seek a public board seat.
Thank you. We have a bit of a double question here. We'll start first with Dr. Tom. What if you don't have a private boards, but a doctorate in organizational leadership and development and many years experience?
Well, I would need a little bit more clarification on that, but what I'm assuming they're asking is in terms of the profile that boards seek, in terms of the qualifications to join membership on our website, LatinoCorporateDirectors.org, we have very specific qualifications for membership. In terms of skill sets and profiles, we also take that into consideration for those interested in joining LCDA, and as well for those who we promote or amplify for board opportunities. Having that level of background, doctor, is something that is an asset. It just depends on the type of board you're seeking. Organizational development can be considered, part of human resources, human talent, which is something that a lot of organizations are really focusing on, especially with COVID, the remote work. But it just all depends on what your value proposition is, how you state your value proposition, and as well what organizations you're engaging at that time. What I mean by that is there are certain profiles that are not primed for public board opportunities, but they're great for not-for-profit or great for private equity, high growth organizations. There are kind of two profiles we see. With public opportunities, more of an advisory. They're seeking for someone that's kind of a best athlete. When it comes to private equity, private venture capital, they sometimes seek functional experts, cybersecurity, supply chain, more of a doer. So once again, in part of your board journey, it's always wise to have a plan, and that plan consists of knowing your value proposition, and as well, where is that value proposition going to best benefit? Is it in a public company, private company, or in a specific industry? Hopefully that answers that question.
Thank you, Ozzie. And I think you did kind of answer another question here from Ken Macias. What attributes are most desirable to be on a public board? And I think you kind of listed off a few of them right there.
Yeah.
And then another kind of 2-for-1 here. Cynthia and Antonio kind of have the same thing. Antonio first asked, how does one without any board experience get to the point where they're asked to join a board, whether private or nonprofit? And then Cynthia kind of piggies back on that with, what steps would you recommend for a Latino professional who would like to pursue board positions?
Great questions, and ones we get all the time. One thing to keep in mind is board seats don't turn over every day. Landing a board seat, either on a public or private board, takes a lot of work. We have developed kind of a 3 to 5 year plan when it comes to your board journey. Most of that plan is focused on making sure that you reach the highest levels of executive leadership that you can, meaning if it's going to the C-suite, the highest level in your functional expertise, really ensuring that you have a profile that is applicable and valuable for the type of organization you're seeking. We have come across a lot of individuals that still need a couple more years to really get deeper in their expertise and or to really understand better what organizations are looking for. So it's not really about, first it's really understanding if you are ready for board service, and happy to share this 3 to 5 year plan with the participants later on. But really, it's really ensuring that you have built a profile that really is desirable and applicable. The other piece of that is I encourage everyone to kind of come up with 5 organizations and go into, and I'm gonna get a little bit technical here, going into SEC filings for those specific companies, preferably public companies, and really look at what their board looks like, what skill sets they're seeking. Is it financial acumen? Is it international exposure, global? And kind of backtracking to figure out, do I have those skill sets? Can I develop those skill sets? And then really being able to use that exercise to tell your story effectively to leaders that will resonate to it, right? So that's an exercise I encourage everyone to do, to really kind of figure out kind of an assessment of their skills and if they're ready for board service, or if they're not. In terms of the question regarding not having board experience, we work with many leaders that do not have board experience. We have two membership categories, as I mentioned. Our board aspiring, those individuals tend to not have any board experience, but they have the executive presence and the executive resume to open doors for potential board opportunities. So we work with them to be able to help kind of curate their value proposition, how to tell their value proposition, as well as ensuring that we're a guide on the side along their board journey, especially if they have an interview. We match them up with one of our executive experienced corporate directors to answer any questions along the way. This is something that many of our members that have been in public boards for years never had in their life. They never had a guide on the side. So we work with a lot of individuals who do not have board experience, but what do encourage them is to try to get board experience. And that goes back to an earlier question, either through a non-for-profit or getting governance training through National Association of Corporate Directors. A lot of organizations now have developed development programs for deeper governance experience. We do have one as well. It's called the Board Ready Institute that our members who get accepted are able to take part in.
Thank you, Ozzy. Another one here from Teodoro Ramirez. How can we join LCDA and or be in the pipeline for consideration for a board appointment? Is there any training needed or available?
On our website, we have very specific criteria for membership. At a very high level, our director membership, which is experienced corporate directors, you have to be on a board or have been in the last 10 years. Remember, public, private board of $250 million, or pension system or mutual fund. That's a pretty kind of easy criteria. Everyone still gets vetted, even after they fill out an application. Then we have the board aspiring. On our website, we have that criteria. We work with C-suite P&L leaders, 1 to 2 levels under the CEO, entrepreneurs, former government officials. That review is a little bit more intense. We have our staff reviews their profile, our search firm partners review the profile for marketability, and then we have an internal committee of experienced corporate directors that do a final review and then extend an invitation to those who meet the criteria at that specific time. When I say meet the criteria, is we do always an assessment of our membership. Do we need more women in our membership? Do we need more individuals with cybersecurity? So we do full assessments every time we do reviews of applications to ensure that we're meeting the demand that we see from our corporate partners as well as search firms. But on our website, all the details are there. And I encourage everyone to do one thing is to join our newsletter. Our newsletter is easy to access on our website, and you'll get communications of everything that we're doing, as well as call outs whenever we do open applications. And then the other thing I'll say is if you do apply and you do not get accepted, because this is a very, very, very competitive program, it's not that you're not qualified or viable, is that at that time in that assessment, we have found that we need to adjust and bring in individuals that meet the demands at that time. But the good thing is that once you do apply, you do become part of our network. And as Kathy mentioned, we're an organization that has a pulse on Latino board movement and as well Latino executives. So whenever we do get an opportunity, we can make sure that we have enough recommendations for the search firm or the CEO to select from.
Thank you. And Dr. Tom kind of follows up with that with what's the difference between your director membership and executive membership?
Yeah, you can. The details are on LatinoCorporateDirectors.org. There is a tab that says Join LCDA, and all the details in there there'll be all the details in there. The one thing I'll say is the reason why we have these two different membership criteria is that we lean on our experienced corporate directors to really open doors and create opportunities for board aspiring leaders, as well as be coaches and be mentors for those aspiring to be on the board. We leverage our membership every single day for speaking engagements, webinars. We want to ensure that we're leveraging the own intelligence that we have within our membership. But that's kind of why we break it out that way. Externally, everyone's primed for the board, everyone's created equal, and it's the way that we structured has worked really well.
Perfect. And then next question from Ed Vargas. When companies state they support diversity, equity, and inclusion and offer reports on their progress, do they usually include or exclude board positions in that data? If not, why?
I'll take that one, Ozzy. Give your voice a rest. Yeah, because poor Ozzy's coming down with just a little bit of a cold today. So this is a great question. When organizations, public companies, and we've seen a lot of them in the press, say that they support diversity, are they required to include their board? No, they're not. The SEC spells out the requirements for public companies, and there are reports to the SEC's annually, quarterly, and that none of that includes having to report on the composition of your board. There are actually laws on the federal level, not laws, there are bills that have been introduced on the federal level and have passed the House, but not the Senate, that have asked that told the SEC to develop a program where they are requiring this kind of information, not just at the board level, but also at the C-suite level, so that you can see the leadership of the company. And then they're very specific, using census criteria. So, breakout by Latino, African American, Asian. And so we do not have laws in place. That's why California's laws are so forward reaching and are influencing companies all across the country, because those laws are not in place at the SEC, where these companies and I think it is important, though, that we as a community are constantly reminding companies that are talking about their diversity. They may in fact be adding diverse candidates to their board, but we remind them, Latino Voices for Boardroom Equity reminds them, that is our mission, that diversity is not complete without Latinos. And that is our mantra. And we are, speaking to companies every day, introducing them to our organization and our efforts, our coalition effort, Latino Voices, and telling them how important it is that they do include, that they do disclose, and that they do include Latinos, in the boardroom.
Thank you, Kathy. Next question from Jerry Ruiz. What efforts can we promote to help develop the pipeline for potential board members?
Well, the pipeline is all over the country, and it's in a lot of different, has a lot of different growth areas. Encouraging someone to build those skill sets, whether it is to achieve those C-suite ranks in a corporation, so that, because that makes them board ready, whether it is to, serve on private boards, increase their network, introduce themselves, to board opportunities via, other board directors. I think it's important for the group to know that we actually are working with corporations, not just on their board seats, but on that pipeline. The pipeline in corporations, where we have executives, at very high levels of corporations are looking at developing their Latino executives and putting them through our Board Ready Institute, getting them involved in our executive membership at LCDA. And they feel that, companies feel that if their executives go on to be board members, that they're just enhancing their knowledge base and bringing it right back to their corporation. So we often, when we deal with big corporations, first we talk to them about their board, but then the very next conversation is, well, what about our Latino executives? Can we have them, become part of LCDA and learn from, be mentored, participate in the Board Ready Institute. And we, of course, work with them on that, because it is our goal is to include as many board ready Latinos, in our organization as possible, because we want to be able to offer, a variety of skill sets and industry expertise when companies ask us, who do you have available? And it is true that many corporations, they do want to see those titles like CEO and CFO, but they are, very open to, up and coming C-suite executives. And so we're very, very aware of that and working with corporations on that.
I'll follow up on that really quick. So first and foremost, let individuals know that LCDA exists. There's one in terms of just increasing our membership, bringing Latinos at the highest level of leadership to be part of the organization, to continue to advance the mission, as well as letting your corporations know that LCDA exists. We are here as a resource to organizations to tap our Latino talent. We're not a recruiting firm, but once again, we're here to eliminate that network gap. And many people don't know that LCDA exists. As well, get smart in terms of other organizations that are also doing this level of work. For example, Silicon Valley Leadership Group, they are doing a development program for board aspiring leaders. This, as I mentioned earlier, takes a village to make a change. So these organizations are providing additional resources to be able to continue to expand the work that LCDA is doing. We're a very small staff here, but we act like we're hundreds and thousands of employees, and the more the merrier is great. The other three things is share 5 to 10 names of Latino leaders whenever you are approached for a search. Either it could be entry level to the C-suite. We are the only ones that are going to advocate for our community. So ensuring that though you have a list of 5 to 10 people that are Latinos ready for that opportunity is going to be super helpful. Share our research. We have plenty of research on our website. You can share with your colleagues just to bring awareness of the lack of Latino representation on corporate boards, because I will say many do not know that Latinos are the least represented. And lastly, make it easy to find you. So what I mean by that is update your LinkedIn, let people know that you are first generation Latino, Mexican American. Make it easy to be found by search firms, because once again, we are being bypassed simply for the fact that people don't know that we identify by race, for race or ethnicity. Our resumes speak for themselves, but right now, with the current state of events, we want to ensure that people know that we are Latinos that are proud and as well very primed for the board. So those are my takeaways.
In case you would like to look at our membership, we are one of the only organizations that actually has a list of our members online. So just click the membership tab and you can read through the membership. That probably will answer a lot of questions and also give you all of those recommendations that Ozzy suggested that you have in your hip pocket.
Thank you. I believe last 1 or 2 questions here from Miguel de Jesus. How can we accelerate positive representation impacts? How can an organization develop a program to accelerate corporate board level readiness in the next 12 months?
Well, the work that LCDA has done in terms of elevating board aspiring leaders, it's actually a new initiative we started approximately 2017. The program that we curated was along with KPMG, Stanford Rock Center, and it took years to develop a comprehensive program for us to be able to feel that we're effective in elevating Latinos for board. So there are other organizations, as I mentioned, that are doing the same similar kind of programming fashion. One I mentioned, two I mentioned earlier, National Association of Corporate Directors, they have a program called Accelerate that is also great to look at. And I say these not because I don't want individuals to learn more about LCDA, but it's all about building your network and getting connected to leaders that could open doors. There are many different kind of profiles that are part of NACD or Silicon Valley Leadership Group or ACER. It's all about elevating your profile, ensuring that people know that you are interested in board opportunities, first and foremost, making sure that you're prepared for it. So these programs are really there to help you kind of get a good governance foundation. The one thing that makes LCDA very different from other organizations is that we engage in we offer three things. One is networking. We are committed to convening Latinos at the highest level of governance and leadership to come together and get to know each other and learn from each other. The other is learning, now to learning, with the Board Ready Institute and online webinars that we host on a quarterly and monthly basis. We do have our annual convening coming up in the next couple of days. That is going to be riveting conversation with leaders like Jessica Alba, Oscar Munoz, the former CEO of United Airlines, Chip Berg, the CEO of Levi Strauss. And the last piece is opportunities. We are a full ecosystem to ensure that people are networking, learning, and as well that they're aware of opportunities out there to ensure that they can put their hat in the ring. I mean, 2/3 of board searches are still done by who you know. And 3 years ago, we would never have known about these board opportunities. It was still about, hey, Bob, who do you know? Or hey, Sarah, what's going on? Do you know anyone for this board opportunity? And now organizations are leveraging LCDA and other platforms to kind of ensure that they're building this pipeline and have options. And LCDA has been a premier resource for these organizations.
Thank you. And Miguel also mentions he's a retired senior level Fortune 500 executive and would love to engage. Folks, I'm going to put in the chat here our contact for the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. If you want to get more in touch with Ozzy or Kathy, we'd be able to help facilitate that, no problem. Seeing no more questions, I will turn over to Ozzy and Kathy for any last words.
Go ahead,
Ozzy. I think we've almost said it all. I think that Ozzy's last points were critical. If you're interested in education opportunities and board service, start. There's a lot of different avenues. We think that our avenue has over the years been very well developed. We have the advantage of, instead of going, to one of, the premier institutions like the Harvard Business School, where you show up and then you leave and you're back, where you started. We have our membership as mentors for our board ready executives, and so we feel that is it's not a one and done learning opportunity. It is a continuing learning opportunity. And as anyone who's familiar with board service, you're always learning. You're always participating. Most of our upcoming convening will be hearing from experts in the boardroom, telling us about all of the thought processes that are going on now based on COVID, based on climate change, based on everything that is challenging corporations today. So it's important to keep learning, to get involved, and to keep networking. And we feel that we do that in a unique and very productive way. We feel that our pipeline is building every day, and we're very proud of that, and we hope to make you proud.
My I always say this to everyone, leverage your network. Don't let things wait to land on your lap. Be patient, know your value, and treat this like you're dating. There are more opportunities out there than ever before, just because of the pressure that institutional investors, LCD, and other organizations are applying to these organizations, and they need help building that pipeline of diverse leaders. So treat it like you're dating, be patient, don't get frustrated, and know that not a lot of board seats turn over, but you have to be very committed to ensure that you are ready for this board journey, because it's not an easy one. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ozzy. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Once again, I just thank Ozzy and Kathy. Thank LCDA. This webinar was recorded. It should be on the CHCC YouTube page by tomorrow. We thank you all for joining us again, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.